All right, today's guest, we have Jon MacIntyre. Jon is an industry leader in real estate, finance, and private equity. But beyond his professional achievements, Jon's true passion lies in philanthropy. Fair to say?
For sure.
He is the founder of Savour the Moment, a nonprofit dedicated to bringing people together to share new experiences and support communities in need. Now, what I love the most about Savour the Moment is that it really brings a lot of people who don't know each other together and creates this massive community where you have hundreds of people getting together for different organizations. He doesn't just donate to one organization. He chooses different charities, different organizations per event to donate to. And it's all these fun events that people can get together. It's not just like a party or some might be a party, but a lot of them are these fun events. Without further ado, Jon MacIntyre.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. To your point, work is work, but philanthropy is really where I tend to want to really focus my excess energy and find ways to really help a community. I've done it in a lot of different ways, and it's I have a motto that says "Move with Purpose," and that's been one of the key purposes that drives me every day.
Move with purpose. You live by that.
In everything I do.
So in sticking with moving with purpose, what are you doing right now? Like, what does the life of Jon MacIntyre look like right now?
So there's a lot of moving parts. On the work front, I've explored a lot of different things in my career. Real estate's obviously a passion for me. I love looking at tangible things and walking by and saying, what can we do with that? So that's obviously something I've, gravitated towards in my career. So I'm working on a couple of different projects right now. Have amazing partners out there who I'm working with who have some incredible ideas and, have asked me to kind of hop on board. And, for me, it's finding the right type of people to surround myself with who have, a vision, who generally want to make a difference in people's lives, and you can still make money while doing that. So it's finding those right types of partners who are really looking to do those types of things. I wake up every morning, normally around 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm a little injured right now, but normally I would, head to the gym.
Are you waking up via alarm clock or mental alarm?
So my alarm clock is set for, 5:30, but no matter what, I wake up between 5 and 6, the latest. My body wakes up and pretty much tells me time to go. And so for me, I still, regardless of being injured right now, I had a couple of weeks where I couldn't do anything. Now I'm focused on just still working out. I still put an hour of workout in every day.
Even with the injury?
I do. It's one of the things I was taught at growing up is show up. You can't always show up 100% or fully healthy, but you still can show up. And I think that's just something I have taken with me from sports to work to charity events to relationships. It's just show up. So I show up for at least an hour a day for myself and to make sure that I'm kind of continuing to be energized and focused on my overall health. Like right now, it's a foot and ankle injury, but doesn't mean my heart's hurt right now. So I can put my heart into something.
I feel like this is going to be a common theme throughout this conversation. So you're talking about you're working with partners on different projects. Is this all in New York? Because you're not originally from New York, are you?
No, I'm originally from Rhode Island. My projects, to be honest, span across the country right now. A lot of stuff on the real estate side and bigger ventures in that regard. But I've also kind of been connected with a lot of brands or smaller companies that are looking to really grow, and those range from
name one company.
A company called Deuce Brand, for example.
Okay. I see in your IG you representing Deuce, and I click. Obviously, I go down a little. I wouldn't call it going down a rabbit hole, but I then go to see who's repping Deuce Brand and what is it all about. Now, what is it all about?
So originally, the whole premise behind Deuce Brand is an underdog mentality. If you're constantly feeling like you're an underdog, you're always constantly trying to achieve more, and you want to grow, and you want to kind of have that second place mentality, hence the Deuce. And so when I got connected with these guys, originally it was a watch company that could be worn by skateboarders, surfers. You could wear it wherever you wanted to. It was San Diego-based company, so it was really for that, out and about kind of individual where you're going to fall to the ground, you're going to bump it. It's not the traditional watches that you're worried about scratching up. It was, you could wear it in the water, you could wear it doing pretty much anything. And through the years, I've been kind of working with them and seeing what they've been doing and helping them kind of pivot or support them in any way I could. And they've pivoted so many times. They went from the watches to strictly primarily wristwear to now really apparel being one of the biggest drivers of their business and really just getting their branding out there and that underdog mentality. They've worked with, you name it from a sports perspective. And, a lot of the people they've worked with have come on board, not getting paid just because they believe in the brand. And I love that.
Are these usually underdog athletes who see the vision and they're like, that was me, and that's why I want to support it?
A lot of it's that, and a lot of it is frankly, like it's a brand that people can get behind.
Has Steph Curry worn it?
I don't believe Steph has. Some other more famous names have Kyrie Irving has been somebody who, for example, has worn it pretty much every single game he's ever played. He's been wearing a version of a Deuce brand product.
I like that.
And it was one of those things where he hasn't played a game because once he wore it, that's, he doesn't want to revert. It's something where it's like, you have that. As an athlete, you have something you always want to, you get behind, and it's like, tradition, you do it.
It's your thing. So, from Rhode Island, how'd you come to New York? Why'd you come to New York?
So my story is a little, a lot of people see me, whether it's through social media or just getting to know me the first time, and they're walking into kind of my book at a later chapter in life.
Yep.
And, I come from very humble upbringings. I was raised by a mother who works at a supermarket, still does. My dad is, like my best friend now. And, growing up, we probably had a challenged relationship is the best way to phrase that. But he was a bricklayer. I did every blue collar job you could think of growing up. And when I was a kid,
Nate, give me one or two.
My dad was a bricklayer, so I did masonry work. You want to sit there and do masonry work in the freezing cold and you want your hands to hurt, do that. I've painted houses. I've done, I've framed houses. I've done pretty much whatever my dad wanted to do on the weekends, and when he wasn't doing his regular job, I was tasked with doing that along with my brother. And so for me, I'd be sitting there doing these jobs, or even in my day-to-day as a kid, I'd see guys wearing suits. And when I was a kid, I saw a guy wearing a suit, and I was like, "That's success. Like, I want to someday wear a suit. I want to, I want to wear a suit, but I want to exemplify what a suit means to me, which is, success and giving back to communities and really making a difference, and people viewing you as somebody they want to be like." And so, growing up, that was one of the things that drove me. I was pretty fortunate to be smart, but unfortunately, I also got in a ton of trouble as a kid. Like I said, my mom worked at a supermarket. She was doing what she had to do. My dad was doing what he had to do. So I was out and about. Just my brother
You were the older brother or younger brother? You are the younger brother.
I am. Yeah.
Got it. So do you think that your older brother's actions, attitudes, kind of helped you kind of shape who you were as a troublemaker? For
sure. I like to blame him for everything, but 100% were my choices.
We both know my older brother, and that definitely helped me as a troublemaker to just see, all right, well, he's a troublemaker, and I'm kind of just going to follow suit. You know what it was is like, and I use the word trouble loosely. We were kids. We got in fights. We did things that, frankly, were probably not right. And, I don't regret anything, but there's things I definitely would have done differently. And one of the things I learned growing up, surrounding myself with certain people, is the term loyalty, for example. It's something one of the, key things I live by, and I use that term very specifically. So loyalty a lot growing up is you have to be loyal to a cause. You have to be loyal to something. And what I learned through the years, though, is loyalty can shift, right? And loyalty has to be a two-way street. So like if you're, being asked to do something you don't feel comfortable doing, whether is wrong, and you do it because you think that's loyalty, that's not loyalty. Loyalty really is doing what's best to help yourself, help others for the right reason. So if somebody's asking you to do that, they're not being loyal to you. So through the years, I kind of identified a lot of that, and I figured out for myself, like, I'm going to have to do this on my own to get myself out of this. How did you figure that out?
Honestly, I came across a couple mentors. I came across people who just said the right things to me, or believed more in me than I believed in myself. And those words, like of certain people, like I think back to a vice principal who, frankly could have suspended me a lot more than he did. But like, let me sit in his office, and we had a general conversation versus, you're suspended. Like, he let me just sit there and think about it, and every time I would walk into his office, I'd be like, that was wrong. And frankly, like, I made some bad decisions, but I was also fortunate where I had sports as an outlet. I had, I was a smart kid, so like I actually got kicked out of school my junior year of high school. It's a little known fact. So I had to teach myself calculus as a junior, and I ended up getting pretty much straight A's across the board. And
Wait, so you get kicked out of junior high school?
Out of high school as a junior.
You got kicked out of high school as a junior. You have about 18 months left of school. How'd you finish high school?
So I had to take, I pretty much taught myself my last 2 to 3 months of my junior year. Took all the tests that I had to take, but pretty much was self-taught. And passed all my tests, did everything I had to, and then had to go through a couple of different.
So did you get a high school diploma or GED?
So I went back. I was able to come back, but I had to pass a bunch of tests, and I had to get everybody comfortable that I wasn't going to cause more trouble. And
what did you do to get kicked out of high school?
I got in a fight at the wrong time in the wrong place, and unfortunately somebody got hit that probably shouldn't have been hit.
The statute of limitations has passed. You can share as much as you want.
There was a teacher who tried to break up the fight and ended up getting accidentally hit, and it was one of those. That teacher is still a good friend of mine to this day. But it was one of those things. They didn't have a choice. It was, they have to make that decision.
You accidentally punched a teacher in the face.
Yeah, I kind of skimmed. It was more of a skim.
Skim.
And it was one of those things where they actually created a award, and they give it away at the senior banquet, and they're all sarcastic awards, and they created the Jon MacIntyre Sportsmanship Award. And they gave it away. It was like a flat dodgeball, and it was one of those awards that kind of lived on for years. But those were the things where, when I go back and I speak at different engagements now, those decisions could have completely limited everything I wanted to accomplish in life, and in some ways it did. And so I've always kind of taken that with me and always wanted to kind of reflect on that, where somebody gave me a chance to come back my senior year. I did. I graduated, very strong grades and did very well, and was going to go to school, and I was going to be a math major. Which is kind of funny, where people are like, that sounds like the most boring thing in the world. But but I taught myself calculus. I could do math, and it didn't. You could give me 5-digit numbers, and I can multiply them by other 5-digit numbers. And now I can't do that. So I'm getting old, I guess. But back in the day, I could do that kind of stuff.
What did you, in your head, what did you want to do with being a math major?
I didn't know. So my grandmother was a math teacher. My grandfather was a physics professor, and they were both at Michigan State. And seeing that lifestyle, I'm like, oh, I would love to teach. I'd love to kind of be around that. And then going to school was kind of funny. So I came to school as a math major. It was at the University of Rhode Island. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking around, and this isn't a knock on math teachers, but my professors were covered in chalk. The classmates I was looking around were not really probably similar to me. They were a little different. I'm an outspoken person, obviously. And everybody else was just heads down. And I was just I want to talk to somebody.
This is not where the extroverts go. This is where the introverts go.
100%. So then I kind of pivoted and said, what can I do with numbers that'll be more personal?
So you became a bookie.
No. There was other people handling that in college. But no, so I actually switched to finance. And then I picked up accounting and ended up graduating college with a double major in finance and accounting.
Awesome.
And so I was pretty, and I turned it on. My freshman year, I didn't really try. I just was, getting through classes naturally. And then, right around that senior year, I'm like, I got to step up.
What was it that kind of gave you that kick in the butt?
It was just I just didn't feel like I was doing everything I was capable of. And I feel like I was leaving something on the table. And, unfortunately growing up, I went through a lot of loss. I lost a lot of, friends, or I went to a lot of young funerals. And this is part of where Savour the Moment comes from as well. When you go to a young funeral, the most common theme is always, I wish I could have said more. I wish I could have done more. I wish I was there. And some of these losses were tragic. They were the craziest ways where people could die. And you're just like, how did that happen? That I wish attitude always stuck with me. And so for me, it was I don't want to look back and say I wish. I want to be more. I want to do more. I want to experience more. I want to make bigger differences in life. I want to be there for other people. And so then therefore, if something was to happen, I wouldn't look back and say I wish. And there was points during my college career where I was having fun with everybody. I was having a good time, but I was still causing trouble. We were still, not living the most productive lives. But I was getting through, but I wasn't really putting forth the effort that I knew I could, and I was in my own mind letting myself and others down.
You could also get away with a lot more back then because there was no social media.
100%.
Yeah.
Nowadays, not so much.
No, nowadays not at all. So you're double major on your way to being able to wear a suit every day.
That was the goal. I was it was great. I thought I was on that path. I was ready.
So what's the next step? What? We have that 20 years in between. What's the next step that then brought you from Rhode Island to New York City?
It was crazy. So I was actually I did very well in school, but I wasn't really getting good opportunities. And I actually ended up getting an internship through one of my former roommates and one of my closest friends.
And how did you know about internships? Because it sounds like, coming from a blue collar family, it's not as though internships are spoken about at the dinner table. Like, you didn't know about that. So how did you know about what an internship was and why it was important?
So funny thing about my first internship. So my first couple jobs in college, obviously I went back home and I did blue collar stuff. My first real internship was at an accounting firm in Wakefield, Rhode Island. And they did the books and records and the taxes and you name it, for all the local bars, restaurants, individuals. And it was the funniest thing in the world, because I would legitimately be out partying at, George's on a Thursday night, and the next day I'm sitting there doing their books and records. Like, it was and I'm probably looking at my own receipts. Like, it's like that kind of like funny thing. But I was, fortunate where the university kind of said, hey, you need to get this. You need to get an internship.
That.
You need to make yourself more marketable, because, like, your grades are good, but, like, in this day and age, you're going to need to differentiate yourself if you want to go to these types of places.
And it's great you had a counselor that really touched you personally to do that, because there's, God, how many thousands of students at URI for them to actually say, or email, call, whatever it was, John, you need to be doing this, and here's why.
And I was lucky. Like, my roommate also, his brother-in-law happened to work at a Big Four accounting firm, worked at Price Waterhouse. And he would come visit us all the time. And I was like, that's amazing. You work at Price Waterhouse. And in the accounting finance world, or primarily in the accounting world, you heard that, you're like, dream job. Want to start there. That'd be incredible. And seeing him come back and how his presence, and he was a fun guy.
Did you lay the groundwork with him, like in a business sense?
For sure. I mean, we developed a friendship for sure. But I also like the biggest thing is like, you're going to ask somebody to help you with something. You need to first of all ask because you feel like you personally deserve it, or you put in the work to warrant it, versus just asking for someone to give you a handout. So until I felt comfortable, that's why I took the first internship, is to make sure like I had that credibility, where if someone was going to go out on a limb and put their name behind me, then I'm going to go in there and I'm going to represent that and be thankful and show them that they made the right decision.
Where did that attitude come from?
It was just
was any of that from your father?
A lot of it was like, just, yeah, your name means everything. And a lot of that was like, every time I would get in trouble, it's like people would know my name. And they're like, oh, wow, like that's where, we know him. And I wanted my name to be known for something different than, hey, the kid who got in trouble, or the kid who, ended up doing this because, we assumed he was going to do this. I wanted people to be like, wow, wait, you said MacIntyre? Wait, he's doing what? Like, that's what I wanted to kind of, my name to represent to certain people. I didn't care necessarily about proving people wrong. I cared about proving people, like, the right people right. But at the same time, that was a good
right, but at the same time, it's the same thing in a sense. You don't want to prove people wrong, but the people who have this idea of who you are, you want to correct what they know, because you're like, that was me. This is who I am now.
For sure. And it takes a lot. I mean, it took somebody giving me a chance to get into Price Waterhouse, because otherwise I probably wouldn't have. And frankly, I went on a couple of interviews like, oh, you're coming through this individual who is well respected in the company. So if he's going to put his name behind it, I'm going to come in there and I'm going to perform. Like, that was the number one thing for me. I'm going to come in, I'm going to put my head down and watch what I can do.
And that was for an internship?
First the internship, and then I ultimately ended up going there. The internship went well.
Then you got the job.
Got the job.
So how long were you at Price Waterhouse?
Very short period of time. I was pretty lucky. I actually got put on an IPO. So I actually did the Hertz Rent-A-Car IPO back in 2005.
As a newbie at
As
the
a
company?
first year, yep. I was put on the team, like an incredible team.
Does that mean that like they didn't really care much for the Hertz Rent-A-Car IPO, or they're like,
no.
Like
the team was great, but everybody, you need first years. You need people who are going to want. And I was a first year who was I was probably a little bit of a thorn in the side of the partner, because I wanted to be challenged. I'm like, bring it on. So like, she gave me worldwide analytics, and she challenged me to really think differently than I probably originally would have. Like, when you talk about analytics and how you approach things, it's like coming in with an actual opinion of what something should look like, and then looking at it and saying, oh, what actually happened? It was a different approach than I had kind of been taught growing up. It's like, okay, like, walk in, look at numbers, compare them, what happened, versus come in, have an opinion because you've done that research up front of what something should have looked like or should have happened, and then did it. And if it didn't, why not?
I love that. So they were there to kind of like throw you in the fire, but kind of hold your hand through it. For
sure. And she challenged me, and I was pretty lucky. So coming out of that, I actually got a phone call. Like, I was, in line to get early promoted. I was a top rated performer. Everything was going great. And so I didn't want to leave. I was like, I'm on partner track. This is after 1 year, by the way. I'm going to be a partner. And I got a phone call from a recruiter. And like when you're in the big four at that stage, you get calls from recruiters. They're leaving voicemails left and right. And this is before real cell phones. Like it was like they're leaving it at your work number. And so you check your work number. It's 50 messages, recruiters. And finally, I got a call from a recruiter, and it's like it's a guy I knew.
Are you checking are you checking all of these voicemails?
No. You check them, but then at recruiters, you're just like, I'm good. I'm not looking.
Right.
Because this was coming into the end of the year.
And you're also at Price Waterhouse. It's like, what could you possibly be offering me that's going to be better than this? I appreciate that you get paid to leave this voicemail. I'm good.
For sure. And so, but this recruiter called me, and I picked it up, and he's like, John, I know you're not looking. And I'm like, you're correct. And he's just like, but you need to go on this interview. And I'm like, I'm just not looking. Like, I say, like, the partner's taking a good interest in me. Like, I know what the trajectory is. I'm going to get challenged. Like the rest of my team actually had departed, so I was the only person familiar with the client. It was great. So, and he's just like, go on this interview, and if you don't like it, I'll buy you a steak dinner. And I'm like, I'm like a 22-year-old, 23-year-old kid. I'm like, steak dinner sounds great.
Done.
I'm like, not even a question. I'm like, regardless, I'm going to get a steak dinner out of this, sure.
So you're telling me I got to go to this interview, and regardless, I get a steak dinner?
Right.
Okay.
So I'm like, I'm in. So I go to the steak dinner, and I'm sorry, I go to steak dinner. I go in the interview, and the first couple of people I meet with are all PwC alum. And then I'm like, okay, the fourth person was not. She was actually great, though. And then I get in there, and the fifth person, I walk into his office, and like I saw his name on the door, and he's just like, do you know why you're here? And I'm like, I mean, I think obviously the Price Waterhouse connection makes sense. And he's just like, he goes, do you know who I am? And I'm like, I know your name. I can't place it, but I know your name. He goes, you and I just worked on the Hertz IPO together. I was on the transaction services side, never met in person, but I basically told them to go get you. I love what you did as a first year over there. I think you'd be great for what we're about to do here. I told them to kind of, get you on this interview. And so for me, like that obviously spoke to that year that I had put in, at Price Waterhouse. Like I put my head down and I worked hard. I was given an opportunity and I took advantage of that opportunity and I performed, and hopefully I represented my friend well, who gave me that opportunity, and then I got presented with another one because of it.
Amazing.
And so ironically, it was like one of the toughest decisions, but this was a company called, at the time it was Man Financial, which was the brokerage arm of Man Group out of London. And they wanted to separate their brokerage arm from their asset management arm and IPO the brokerage here in New York. So decided to join the team, and we were given like a 7-month window to execute and to take the company public, and came on board as probably the most junior person once again on that team.
But they knew that.
And they knew that. And I came in and I joined an incredible group of people, and I learned so much in a 7-month period before going public. We working 7 days a week. I was traveling around the world. Like it was awesome for somebody my age. Like, I'd get a call.
You're probably calling home to, parents who are blue collar, and you're telling what you're doing, and they're like, what?
100%.
You're in London?
Correct.
How did you get to London?
And that's my mom. Like my mom is probably the most, my mom lives in a 1 mile world. She goes to work, she comes home.
But
and
she's
that's
happy.
She's content. It's one of those things where like I try and get out of her comfort zone, but frankly, that woman sacrificed so much for me. I have no right to tell her what to do.
Nope.
So I kind of just let her do it. I try and nudge when I can, but
right.
I think
and she's a Jon MacIntyre cheerleader.
She is. And to your point, though, like I can call her about certain things, and certain things, to be honest, it's a tougher conversation because she's not as familiar with it. And the funniest thing that would happen is, coming out of like doing an IPO and then some of my other points in my career, I would always go home. And I go home to Rhode Island, and I would either drive home late on a Friday night or very early on a Saturday morning. And the first thing I would do is I go to the beach. And I go by myself half the time, and I'll go, and like no matter what, whether it's January to December, I go in the water. And it doesn't matter like what the temperature is, doesn't matter what the weather is, like I go in. And you can see everybody doing these polar plunges. Like I don't call it that, I just call it going home. Right? So I just go home. And I go in the water no matter what. I go on the beach and I'll come home. And my mom would be like, where'd you go? And I'm like, to the beach. She's like, with who? And I'm like, by myself. She's like, why? And I'm like, she didn't understand that like living in New York City, for example, somebody like me, it's such a fast-paced environment, and I love it. I thrive in it, but it's an unforgiving environment. So sometimes, like being able to come home, the minute my feet would touch sand, everything would go away. The minute my body hits the water, I don't feel anything. I'm just in that moment because one, you got to be present in the moment, because if it's freezing cold and there's a storm and the waves are moving, you better be present.
Yep.
So like you got to kind of like that was like my disconnect, and then I'd say like, it's just me with me. And I've done my way. Sometimes, like I wake up every morning and the first, I do a couple, breath work exercises just to wake up because my body doesn't respond like it used to. So I gotta, before I put that foot on the ground for the first time, I'm like, all right. But that's why I can sit in water, cold water, and it doesn't faze me. Like people see videos of me, I'm just sitting in the ice, like it's fine. But like you find that place where you can disconnect because I'm so fast paced and I'm trying to fill every hour of every day, and it takes a lot out of you. And so those are moments where, for example, I can't be on my phone in the ocean.
Nope. And that's the one thing that I love about swimming and doing swimming for my cardio some mornings, because my phone is over there and it's just literally me and the water, and the thoughts that come from being in the water are the best.
For sure.
Even if I go for a run and my music is in my pocket, still have the accessibility of it's the energy, and the energy of the phone is gone when you're in the water.
It has to be, and I think that's where it's important to have those moments of disconnect. And like in this day and age, more so than ever. I mean, I grew up, I'm a little older than probably people think I am. I grew up with the first phones connected to a wall. Like you wanted to talk to somebody, you had to like cuddle up next to the wall if you're going to be on the phone for a while and sit there connected to it. Cause like that was the choice you had. And you couldn't use the internet at the same time. I'm not that old, but like we had the dial up. You got to wait for that.
I remember it was like a big thing when like you got a second line for 100%, the internet.
Yeah, exactly.
So going from one financial firm to another and being the youngest, what was the vibe like there? Was there any form of hazing? And hazing has like a very big negative way about it. Was there any, we'll call it hazing, any small form
Not at these places, and my actual next job was actually kind of more interesting. I went to a publicly traded, closely held company. It was a tech company, and I actually was brought in and being groomed at a very young age to be their next CFO per se. Their CFO was 60. He was 60. Was going to retire at 65. They wanted to groom me. They loved my energy, and they're like, "We're a very old company. We want to bring somebody in with your energy, your skill sets to really rock the boat."
And you had the resume at this point already.
Correct. So I was like, okay, I'm willing to do this. And I went there, and it's funny, like you come in and it's like trying to get people who have done things a certain way for 30 years, to even give you the time of day as a challenge. And people who worked for me technically, but I was one of the youngest people in the company. I had people underneath me who were 45 years old, nearly 50, and trying to teach them, hey, like try this Excel formula, it's going to help you. Like, so doing that's always like helped me kind of in my career, is I've been able to kind of, hopefully mentor people or challenge people to be better, or give them tools where I'm not telling them what to do, I'm helping them do something. And some people embrace that, some don't. And, like I was lucky enough where people taught me. I have mentors to this day where they hold me accountable.
Right. It's also the way that you present it to people, and you are very good with people.
I try to be, but I'm a big personality too. Like I'm passionate. And sometimes that passion, that quick response has gotten me into trouble. Not like bad trouble, but just you say some things sometimes and you're like, you don't mean it in a direct way, but you come off as overly direct, or you come off as, abrupt. And in reality, you're just passionate. You're trying to really do something. And some people use that as a crutch of like, oh, I'm just passionate. And it's like, no, for me, like I genuinely care. Like, and I'm trying to do a lot of different things. I'm moving fast, and it's helped me my career depending on the boss. Like some bosses are like, you're an executor. Love that. Go execute.
Was there any moment where your energy kind of nipped you in the butt, and it hit you in a negative way?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, for sure. I mean, like I've gone through everybody probably knows my journey now. I spent 8 years at WeWork. And I, like before that I worked at a very, more of an asset manager after the tech company.
What was life like at WeWork?
It was interesting. I mean, I was, in the early, I joined in 2014 where, there was about 100 people or so, and very small finance organization, wanted to really grow and potentially IPO within 12 to 18 months. And there were such lofty goals there, and there was such, strong personalities there. And I was brought in to help be one of those people that brought structure to a crazy world.
Yeah, as someone who is in the finance part, are you looking at their expectations of their expansion? You're like, I don't know if this is going to fly.
You know what it is? And like I use this example. Like, so one of the things I focused on is creating what I call swim lanes. So going back to swimming, what swim lanes do is they open and close, right? So how do you create swim lanes that allow for growth in a smart and thoughtful way, but allow people to really be what they're great at? If you're an entrepreneurial mind, I'm not going to try and tame that. It's not my place to.
Nope.
My job, like for example, in the finance world, was to be a strategic partner, to be someone who advises you, to be somebody that provides tools or gives you information that's informed that you can trust. And then ultimately we can make decisions. In some cases, the decision might be to go more aggressive, regardless of the information and the recommendation. It still might be, hey, we want to do this and we're willing to take that chance and that risk. And so finding that right balance, finding where you as a professional are comfortable, is sometimes the biggest challenge, because you might disagree wholeheartedly with a CEO of a company. But sometimes if you voice your opinion, but they're the ultimate decision maker, you let them make that decision, and then you do what you can to support that mission. You then continue to support it and kind of back it, and you find ways to make sure that it's going to be successful. Or it might not have been what the decision you recommend, but that decision happened. Yeah. So you now got to figure out ways to make sure it's going to be successful. So step it up.
So at what point did you see that WeWork was kind of, we'll call it the Titanic?
Well, I wouldn't call it that. I think there's a lot of information, for example, out there about WeWork, and I won't get too technical.
Right, because a lot of the information out there is put out there strategically for comments like exactly what I just said to come out.
So I look at WeWork, and I can tell you in my circle, which my circle is pretty tight. I could say some of my closest friends are former WeWork, either former WeWorkers or current WeWorkers, people that were just extremely talented. The story that doesn't necessarily get told all the time is there were so many smart people there. You look at the WeWork family tree now, and you look at the companies that these people have started and what they've done, and to your point, like the press or the media is going to tell the story they want to.
Yep.
And call it what it is. Did WeWork grow too fast? I'm not going to answer that because I was in the position I'm in. But they made some decisions, and some were decisions like everybody like everybody makes it right, and some decisions are maybe not the best decisions, and you end up having to live with that, right? And so WeWork went through what it went through, and I think like I was, to be very honest, I was going to leave WeWork multiple times, and
leave WeWork, but stay in New York. There was. Have you ever had a moment where it was like, what the fuck am I doing? Maybe I go back to Rhode Island for a little bit.
Never go back to Rhode Island, which is a funny thing. I love being home.
Yeah.
But I've had opportunities to go other places, whether it was to go work in Miami or to work in California or to work in London. And frankly, the WeWork decision to stay there multiple times was based on feeling like I had unfinished business, and also that sense of loyalty. Sometimes blind loyalty, but I felt loyal to not just myself, because I was brought in to help get IPO ready within 12 to 18 months. And so when I was presented, for example, I was going to leave right before the pandemic. Didn't know the pandemic was coming, just to be clear. And was ready to leave, and was going to depart. And the pandemic happened, and it was an opportunity to say, okay, do I want to be part of the comeback, or do I just want to say good luck? And so I connected with the new leadership team. I talked to some of my internal friends, and I came back to the operating company side.
Because that's who you are.
And I worked alongside some people who were part of what I consider to be the biggest comeback story in corporate history. Like, a lot of people saw what happened in 2019 and would have never expected WeWork to get to where it was in 2021. And is it in a perfect state now? Probably no, but that comeback story still happened.
Right, and I guess a perfect state is depending on who you ask, because from where they were to now where they are, it's fantastic.
And I think what's most important about, for example, when I left to go to WeWork, and this goes back to kind of when I made the decision there. So I was sitting in a corner office. I was wearing that suit. I finally got to that true suit. I mean, like the power suit, like not the suit that falls off your shoulders kind of suit, like that. You
went from like junior with respect to all right. Yeah, let's rock.
For sure. I had that tight suit. Like I was like, and I'm looking out the window. I had a corner office. I'm looking at the Chrysler building, and I sat there and I thought to myself, I'm like supposedly this is making it, but I don't feel like that. I'm like, yes, I'm worried about the bottom line. I'm trying to achieve these goals. That's great, but I'm not giving back. I'm not really making a tremendous difference. I have my nonprofit, but that's not enough. And so that's when I made the decision to join WeWork, because WeWork was changing the way people worked, right? And that's a huge part of your day. So I'm like, crazy. These people are actually changing the way people work, and I'm like, and they're connected to the community. I'm like, if this isn't like the most obvious of decisions for me, then what is? So I made the decision, and that's kind of what drove me there.
So at this point in your life, you're saying, I felt like I made it, but it's like, what are we doing? Was there any sense of like imposter syndrome in there?
A little bit. I mean, like I'm harder on myself than anybody else could ever be. Mm-hmm. I set probably standards for myself that are very unachievable. But like it motivates me to keep driving there. And to be honest with you, it can hit you hard. And there's moments in my life where I've been in some pretty dark places where like I felt like I failed myself. I felt like I failed others. Like
What do you do in those times? Or in that time, those times, in that time, can you share?
Honestly, like full transparency. Like I've been through some dark moments where I got to some places where I needed to finally reach out and ask for help. Like I was brought up in an era where asking for help was
Emotionally or financially?
Emotionally. And for me, for example, I was in New York City pretty much alone. I didn't have family here. But growing up, people were always like, you made it. You got out of here. Like you're doing well, you're doing great. And I'm sitting here in New York and I got friends back home.
And this is also pre-social media. So it's not even like they're seeing like your curated Instagram where it's like, oh shit, John's working out with this person. He's wearing a suit while getting a coffee. Like they just know that you're in New York. So you're not showing them you made it. Their perception of you made it was just knowing you were in New York.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, you're doing so well. You're doing great. And I come home and people are like, hey, can you help me? Can I borrow money? Can I do this? Can I do that? And for me, like I was like, I didn't want to let people down, but at the same time, like I was going through my own stuff. Like I didn't have a fallback plan. I put so much pressure on myself. I'm like, I had to succeed. Like, and you get to that point where, you have some misses or some losses, whether it's relationships, whether it's career, whether it's, you thought you'd be doing more. And you get to this point where you're like, who can I ask for help from? And you just don't know who to ask, because if I was to ask somebody for help, I'm no longer their rock. I used to be the person that people could say, like, I can turn to you and you got my back no matter what. I couldn't go back to that person and be like, hey, I need help. Because that would be a sign of weakness, and then they wouldn't feel comfortable coming to me.
And give me a year. At what point? What year? Because I would say in the last few years, it's become less like unmanly to ask for help. Like mental health has become a very big conversation. And even more so in the last like 2-3 years. I mean, my best friend died in September, and it crushes me every fucking day, like that I didn't reach out more. I didn't he's been quirky since we're 10 years old. I'm quirky, he's quirky. Like he's my brother, but for the last few years, and it's never gonna leave me. Maybe it will, but I think every day that I could have done more. I could have done more, and just he didn't reach out with like the I'm going through this, but I feel like I should have been able to read between the lines.
This was like 2012 for me, and this was, I was in a good place, and I had just gone through, a breakup. I had gone through some other losses in life, friends, and I was just, career was okay, but it was, I was working every day, but I didn't feel fulfilled at all. And like, I was just in a tough place, and like, I didn't know what to do. And like,
did you feel lonely?
Oh, for sure. And I don't, like, I wasn't good about like telling anybody that. And, full transparency. And like, it's, I'll put this out there, is I made a pretty bad decision. And I made a phone call after I made that decision, and I called my mom. And honestly, like, if she hadn't picked up, I might not be here. And she picked up, and like all I said was, I'm sorry. And all I heard was her tears. And once I heard that, like I never wanted to die, like, to be very honest, like full transfer. I didn't want to die, but I was just tired. And there's a difference, I think, sometimes in that terminology, because like I wanted to live. I didn't want to like feel pain, or I didn't want to like deal with today, which, for somebody like me who like people see me and I'm like I take every hour and I use it, and I'm so proud of that. Like in that moment, it was a single moment, a single blip, whatever. But if my mom didn't pick up, I might not be here. And she luckily did. And then like by me calling, then I hung up, and I made that first call I've ever made in my life for help. But I called for help, and luckily enough, I got the help I needed that night, but also I got the help I needed, in the weeks and months that followed. But, I think that was the strongest I've ever been in my life, is asking for help. And I've learned from that, and that's part of what I try and then do to give back, is I give people that comfort, or give those people those outlets and tell these stories, because it's like, hey, like we've all been there. Like nobody's that tough. Nobody can get through life. I don't care who you are. Like you can be the toughest person in the world. Like at some point, somebody's helped you. Somebody's going to help you, or you're going to need somebody to help you. Like I don't care who you are. Even if you're 85 years old and you've somehow made it all the way, at some point, someone's going to have to help you do something.
Especially in life, when someone might come at you with an attitude or something, you don't know what's going on in their life. You don't know what their day was. You don't know what their week has been like. You don't know the shit that anyone's going through to judge somebody. And we'll revert now to savor the moment. When did that start? And was this kind of a pivotal moment in your life that pushed you towards starting Savour the Moment?
So I started Savour the Moment in 2005.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so this has been going on.
What was the first event?
First event, I actually hosted it at home in Rhode Island. The only event I've actually held in Rhode Island, which is funny. And I partnered with the Make-A-Wish Foundation because when you think about the message or the mission of Savour the Moment, it's to bring people together outside of tragedy, give people a reason to stop and say, I want to be present. I want to share a laugh, share, a smile, share a genuine conversation, real connection. Put the phones down. Like, don't worry about the kids. Don't worry about dishes. Like, just show up and be present. And so I hosted a dinner at home, and I wanted to find an organization to partner with, and Make-A-Wish was like spot on. Like, they're providing moments, and Savour the Moment, right? Great. So I reach out to the organization. I call them up, and I'm like, hey, like, can I come pick up some materials? They're like, yeah, stop by our office. And so I go up to their office, and I can't find it. It's in Cranston, Rhode Island, in a back of like a retail store behind another store. I'm like, where is this place? So I go up the back staircase. I get there, and I walk up, and I see nothing but pictures on the wall of like kids. And I'm sitting there. I'm just like, I'm like a mess, right? So I'm like 23 years old, and I'm like, and I walk at this woman.
I'd be bawling.
This woman walks up to me. She's like, it's so great what you're doing. And I'm like, I do nothing compared to what you guys do, like on a daily basis. A lot of people don't know, like most people at Make-A-Wish they're not paid. Like a lot of it's volunteer. So I was like, wow, I'm like, I want to do whatever I can. So host an event, had about 100 people or so came. It was a sit down dinner.
It's a lot for a first event.
100 people, yeah.
How did you get the word out?
This was old school. So this was email and calls.
Yeah.
So email, no social media really. So emails and calls. And I had 100 people from New York, from Connecticut. Like my boss at the time, First Waterhouse, came all the way up. It was one of those things where, it's kind of funny. He'll laugh at this, and I'm sitting there and I'm speaking, and I'm dressed in a suit. And this is at the time where you had like baggy shirts, but I had cufflinks on, right? And I'm sitting there, and like one of my best friends from growing up, sitting with his family, jumps up. He's just like, from cuffs to cufflinks. And I'm sitting there, and the funniest part about it is nobody like my job knows like what he's even talking about. His mom smacks him in the back of the head and says, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "But it's funny."
Which is fantastic.
It's
that
funny.
should be on a T-shirt.
Right. So I'm sitting there, and I'm like, "Oh my god!" But we raised $500, and like that was all we raised, and just $500 for the Make-A-Wish.
Got it.
Donate.
So there was no entry to the dinner.
It was I think it was $100 at the time. And the profit from that, like after venue and all that stuff.
Gotcha.
So like this is like the first, like I want to give back. So like the way my nonprofit works is I put on events, I bring in no money. I want it to be 100% passed through to those organizations I'm going to partner with, because frankly, like I don't want money. Like money is great. Money can do a lot of different things, but I wanted to support the right organizations. Everything I do it myself. I'll put up my own money to fund things up front if I have to. It doesn't matter. It's more, how do I then create awareness and funding for other organizations? And so the reason, though, is like going back. So I went to those young funerals, and that I wish attitude always stuck with me. And then I dealt with some health difficulties right out of college or right during my internship. And, one of the things that came out of one of the health issues I was dealing with was you might not ever play sports again. There's a chance you might not ever be able to play sports. And I was like, that's my outlet. It's kind of what saved me. What's kept me out of trouble at certain times. It was an outlet for me. And like I was just like, if I can't play sports, I'm devastated.
Well, what'd you play?
I played basketball. I played every sport growing up: basketball, football, track, golf, volleyball. Probably got kicked out of every one of those as well at some point, but played everything. And that was just something where it was like such like a way for me to come together with people. And so like I was like, if I can't play sports, like that's what am I going to do? And so
your identity.
Correct. So like, and I was actually doing my internship, and I'm driving back over the Tappan Zee Bridge because like I was on Hertz, which was out in New Jersey. And I called my mom, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm living for anymore. Like, I just had the surgery, and I'm like, sports might be. She's like, you got to change the way you look at things in order for things you look at to change. So I hung up on her.
You need to change the way you look at things in order
for things to change. And so I hung up on her because that's the last thing I wanted to hear. And so then I started reflecting. So it's pitch black out. I'm driving along, and I thought about sports. I'm like, what did I love about sports? Like, it wasn't you hit a home run and you cross home plate. There's nobody to high five. Doesn't mean anything. Hit a game-winning jump shot. You turn around and there's nobody there. It doesn't have the same feeling. So what I really loved about sports was camaraderie. I loved being around people. I loved sharing, sweat, laughter, making fun of each other, just being in that moment and really sharing, common goals, sharing and struggle, and sharing just working towards something. And so between that and the loss of a lot of people growing up in the I wish attitude, that's where Savour the Moment came from. Is I wanted to give people a reason to come together outside of tragedy. Tragedy, people come together, right? So somebody passes away, we do a funeral, right? But I wanted to give people a reason, so when they're sitting at that funeral, they don't say, I wish, it's I had. So I provide events where people connect. And so God forbid something happens a week from now, 2 weeks from now, instead of saying, I wish it's I had. And that's the very simple mission. And the second component is, you bring people together and people can do amazing things. And that's where the fundraising comes from. That's where the awareness of other organizations comes from. Of why not capitalize on that with greater good?
God bless. So Savor the Moment is that's your main focus right now, because before we got on the mic, you were telling me work-wise, you're no longer at WeWork, and now you have all these projects that you're working on.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that's like at the top of the list, like this may be my next everyday profession?
There's a couple things, and I think so. I'm never gonna
Pigeonhole yourself into one job.
I'm always going to have side projects, right? So
Right.
like I'm fortunate enough to have partners on some big initiatives that, could go either way. And, from the standpoint of, could I make that my career? For sure. But I do love what I do. And so like I've been in discussions with a lot of different organizations. And for me, it's finding the right type of people to surround myself with. And at this point in my career, what's most important to me is who I work with and who I surround myself with and what their goals are as an organization, and like how do I attach myself to like their mission. If I can get behind something, then I'm all for it. So whether it's brands that I support or health and wellness people that I surround myself with, or just my general friends and relationships, it's all about, where is this going to go? Like how are we going to do things that are positively impacting others? How are we going to kind of make sure we're paying it forward? Like, and I look back and like I want to make the difference that somebody made for me, is it gives somebody a chance. So when it comes to like being at a company, like I want a company that's focused on mentorship, a company that's gonna, we're gonna bring in people. I love teaching. I love putting people into places where they're gonna be challenged, but we're gonna get them to that next level.
Are you coaching any sports right now?
I coach fitness. So I'll coach small group classes. I teach some corporate wellness classes as well.
At your gym?
All over. So I'll do it. I actually go to certain offices and coach out of their offices, which is fun for me. And it's one of those things where you get a different type of professional sometimes, and it's different levels, right? So it's people who, a lot of these companies are smart enough, and similar to the WeWork model, a lot of these companies are smart enough to now create environments where like you're providing a very simple service at no real cost to you guys as a company that 10 or 12 people can get an overall benefit from. And if you do it right, it's that thing that keeps somebody connected.
So
keeps
going
them
into an
engaged.
office, showing people breath work, how to actually stretch at your desk.
Well, I teach a lot of these places have actually gyms in their offices now. So I actually teach the classes there, and I show up, and it's like they complain about having to show up at 7 a.m. and I'm I've been up for 2 hours already.
Yeah.
But they show up and like they put in the work, and like for me, like I love doing that, and I can see the benefit that they get out of it. I get the benefit of helping people. Everything I do when it comes to fitness, I donate to charity. So every class I've ever taught, anything I've ever raised through the fitness world, I've pretty much donated out.
And is that after your bottom line is covered?
I don't even factor in my bottom line. If I bring in money, it goes out the door.
Got it.
So I've minimized any kind of expenses, and like for me, it's like I've been fortunate to get into the fitness community and the fitness world. So when I create classes or I do those types of things, I created a movement called For All Movement. And it's the acronym FAM, so it's all about family, right?
For All Movement. And how long ago did you create that?
That was coming out of the pandemic. The gym I was a part of, unfortunately, was going to close, and so I stepped in and kind of said, we got to keep this gym open. It's a beautiful facility. I partnered with an incredible physical therapy group who now runs all the, they run it themselves now, and that's kind of their space. And so I operate out of that space as well. But for me, I wanted to keep this going. It was a great space. It was a good community. I didn't want to lose that, and I didn't want people to lose that, because when you create good community, you got to put the effort in to keep it going. People so easily walk away from things, and it's hard to get people to buy into something. So once they do, you got to keep feeding the fire. Otherwise
Right. I was literally just going to say exactly that. Like, even when the fire starts to dwindle, you need to pour some kerosene on it. And FAM sounds like it does that.
And that's what it is. And so like the reason I did it is I wanted to really create environments for people where I don't care if you're 80, whatever it happens to be. I want you to come in, whether it's at that gym or your gym or whatever it is. I want you to feel welcome and have the most inclusive, exclusive experience where anybody should feel welcome. But when you're there, you have an exclusive experience, whether it's the brands I partner with and the products we're able to provide, or, like I've partnered with a group called 1 and 1 now in More Life, and we do our summer club workouts and the Queens, and like we're similarly aligned in our goals and making a difference in those
Do you
types
do
of things.
one-on-one classes also at your gym?
Sometimes. I think when it comes to one-on-ones, it's a little bit more of a challenge for me because I can do it, but you're also going to have to focus on that individual. I don't know how to give 60%. So if I'm going to train somebody one-on-one, I'm going to give you, and frankly, you deserve a lot more attention than I'm able to probably give you. I'd rather do that 3-4 person small group thing. I'd rather do bigger classes and make a bigger impact that way. I have a ton of people in my network who are much better than me. Like if you want to,
Well, those people might say the other way around. They might say that Jon MacIntyre is much better than me.
so the one thing I've always said, and this is where it's kind of funny. Some people they shy away from it or they call it competition. I looked at it like if I can make people happy, you're going to pay it forward. So if there's somebody who's a better, can teach boxing better than I can, why would I not I'm doing my client or I'm doing my friend or I'm doing this relationship a disservice by saying, let me teach you, but this person can do it better. So why would I not want to do that? Because it's going to come full circle, right? You should want people to benefit from the best. And I think when it comes to my career, when it comes to, fitness, I think it's so many people get caught up in it has to be like one way, or you can't collaborate, you can't work together, or it's such a, it's competition. It's like at the end of the day, there's enough food. We all can eat. It might be at different tables sometimes, but there's enough food, and whatever you have as leftovers, you should be, pushing that out. Like you should be legitimately feeding as many people as you can, because the more we all grow together, the better we are. And I think it allows you to be exposed to different types of people. You develop real relationships where people trust you, and frankly, for me, trust is huge. I'm a man of my word. I think it's extremely important to, if you say you're going to do something, do it. It goes back to showing up. And I think there's many mornings where, I don't want to show up. I'm like, shoot, I'd rather sleep in because I'm up at 5 o'clock. I'd love to. But if I don't show up to corporate wellness, for example, one day, then they look at me and they say, you know what? I'm replaceable. Everybody's replaceable. So this person
not just that, because you're the guy. So for them, you're the guy. And if you're not perfect, these people, and it's not to say that they're not perfect. They're perfect at certain things, but not at showing up for their health.
Right.
So if the number one guy is not showing up, then it gives them the ability to say, all right, I can take a step back.
For sure.
And that's the last thing you want to do.
No, and I think that's what's most important too. When it comes to some of the community things or the people you surround yourself with, is does your community show up for you, right? Do your friends, do certain people show up for you? And it doesn't have to be physically.
I love this.
It doesn't have to be financially. It sometimes can just be different people can show up for you in different ways.
It could be a text message.
100%. And I think, it's funny where I was, people are scared of being brutally honest nowadays. And I think, it's funny. And I posted something a while back, and it was if you had to go back over the last year, and every time you said, hey, I'm sorry I couldn't make it, and you had to instead say, this is why I didn't come, would you have changed your decision because maybe, you felt there's an easy way out? You probably could have. You just chose to sit at home and watch a TV show,
Yep.
which is perfectly fine. But people they shy away
You and I
from
wouldn't do that. Most people would, hey, I can't do it. They'd even make up a reason, and I look at that also as bad karma. I was raised that if you have a commitment, you go. You go. I don't care if it's pouring rain out and you have a soccer game and you're not feeling well. Your team, you committed to your team. You got to go play.
Yep. And I think it's I play on a softball team right now, and there's
X-Men.
There you go. And there's some of my closest friends, and the name actually comes from, we're all PwC alumni, or most of us were, right? So that's where the name originated from. Now it's a mix of everybody, and these guys, and it's kind of funny, the bond we've formed. We played together now for 15 plus years. I actually played against this team in Tucson, Arizona, and I used to talk trash. And there's a guy on the team, my friend Jeff, who became one of my good friends. And he went to the manager of the X-Men. He's like, we should have Johnny Mac play with us. And they're like, we can't stand that guy. Because I talk trash, and we ended up becoming all friends, and I joined the team. And it's funny. So this group of people, we play together we have one day a week we see each other, and then we go away to a national tournament every year. But it's a group of people who are all professionals. We're in similar industries. We know each other's families. We are family. Everybody shows up for each other in so many different ways. You have a work question, somebody sends it out, somebody responds. It's one of those things where we've created this, and we have an alumni of our alumni team. So the former CFO of the Yankees or the CFO of the Yankees is an alumni of our team. people in crazy like different
Just the
roles.
power within that is the email chain, WhatsApp.
Yeah, email chain, text chats, we have everything. And we're supposed to have a game yesterday evening. We got rescheduled, and I'm sitting here in a walking boot on crutches or a good old scooter, and I was going to the game. I was going to sit in the stands. I was going to drink a couple beers, and I was going to go support. Not because I very easily could be like, hey guys, good luck.
And what's the energy? So you guys came in second in nationals last year, right?
Did we finish second? No, last year we didn't. Last year I went out with an injury again, and
You would have won.
I mean, I don't like to tell the guys this, but I'm undefeated the last 2 years. I went out with injuries both years. I didn't play the 4 games we lost. Just saying. But no, I mean, we go down there and it's a fun thing. And so for us, like, it's just a good way to, people have families, but this is a commitment everybody makes. We show up 1 day a week, and we sit there, and we had a guy, he passed away last year. You talk about Central Park. He was our beer guy. Like, he was a part of our team. His name was, we call him Panama. And he was a guy, he would show up to every one of our games. He would bring our beers. And we would pay a good amount of money for these beers. And he does it for everybody, but he would do it especially for us. When we were playing, he would wear our hats. Like, he was our guy. And he would keep the park open for us. And so if this gets out, like, please don't get him in trouble. Unfortunately, he passed away. But, like, he would keep the gates open for us. He was good friends with the parks people. So we would sit in the stands. And the backdrop would be the New York skyline. We're on Columbus Circle.
I'm shutting my eyes as
and we're sitting there just drinking beers with friends. And it was that one night a week where you have those moments, and you would talk about savoring the moment.
It's euphoric.
And then he would lock it up as we all left. But those were things, and those are the types of things we hold on to. And creating those types of moments where people are giving people a reason, to just stop. Like, one of the stories I always talk about is is take the local train. Like, we're always fast, right? And I missed a train coming back from Stanford one day going to the city. And I got stuck on the local train, and the doors they're gonna open every time you stop anyway, so you might as well look outside. And I actually had a seat on the local train too, because normally on the express I was standing up in rush hour. I'm like, terrible. And I had to sit down. I'm like, this is nice. And you got to look out the window. So I'm like, sometimes just take the local train, which you look around sometimes and we just forget.
I love that.
So it's like I try and make sure I live my own messages too, which is sometimes hard.
You have a lot of them.
But I try and do it, and it's hard.
You have any tattoos?
I do.
Are they messages?
One of them is a message, and it was for one of my best friends that I lost, and it's, blood's thicker than water, and it's always in my heart. And, lost at a pretty young age, and, I've had that since I was 13 or 14 years old. And then I have another one over here just in case I forget my name. It's like one of those, like, might as well bring me home if you find me kind of things. Not that I regret it, but it was like a 14-year-old mistake. One of them, this one, I obviously, it means a lot to me, and it's something that I've always kind of held on to. And, when you think back of, people are, lives are lost at young ages, and they didn't have the opportunity that we have of today or tomorrow. So making sure that I legitimately focus on savoring the moment is a friendly reminder.
I was literally just going to say, it's a daily reminder to savor the moment.
It's a little faded now, but it still gets through.
What does the next 6 months look like for Jon MacIntyre?
Honestly, it's I want to get healthy again. Hopefully we're up and running, pun intended, in the next month or so, maybe 2. But it's really focused on just kind of resetting a little bit. The physical injury and kind of the career kind of reset has really helped me figure out what I want to do. And it's like, I really just want to, I got to focus on the next 10 years, but I want to be living in the moment as well. I don't want to be planning ahead a lot of my life, because I come from humble upbringings. I've been worried about saving money instead of living. And so a lot of what I'm focused now is really finding that opportunity to live, go see the people I haven't seen, take the trips I haven't, take care of myself, give myself a break sometimes and say, live in the moment, and have a good time. And it's okay if you don't make it to the gym one day, because you deserve it. It's okay. And 6-pack abs can only go so far. It's okay to eat a cheeseburger and enjoy a nice meal. I'm a guy, I'm working on kind of potential interest into a beer brewery company. And I'm like, it means I'm going to drink some more beers. And I love what they're doing for community. I'm all for it. So, it's a lot of it's I'm looking at certain investments, what I want to do in that regard. Career-wise, I'm close to knowing kind of the avenue I want to go down and kind of who I want to work with.
Which is a multifaceted avenue.
For sure. And it's working with people who can then help you do that, right? And facilitate. I look at a job and a career as what funds my ability to do everything else. And if I'm doing what I love, or I'm doing something I'm passionate about at the same time, then that's amazing. And that's what I'm focused on now, is I don't want to sit there in a corner and just, keep score. Like I want to actually be strategic. I want to be thoughtful. I want to add value, and I want people who appreciate that. And then whatever else we can do, we're going to do it from a nonprofit standpoint, from a physical standpoint. We're going to touch as many lives as we can.
It's fucking special.
Try.
So what are you reading right now? Or what are you reading? And give me your Bible. What are you reading, and what is one book recommendation that everybody should read?
I mean, it's kind of funny, and it's like a lot of people will read like David Goggins, for example, and they read Can't Hurt Me, right, the first book. And
did you read it, or you listened to it?
No, I read. I'm a reader. I don't know if you've seen my posts on Instagram. I actually read the Wall Street Journal in physical form every day too.
So Can't Hurt Me, I did the Audible, and the way the Audible is done, the guy who wrote it with him reads it, and then in between chapters, they have an interview like this about the chapter, and I went through it. It took me like less than a week.
Yep.
I listened to it at the gym. So like I listened to it while I'm working out, and it is fucking powerful.
Yeah,
real powerful.
And those are the types of. So I read a lot of like self-help books, and there's another book called Unfuck Yourself. It's not written that way, but that's what it's intended to mean.
Yeah.
And it's like one of those things of like get out of your own way, and it's like it's really starting to teach yourself that of give yourself the leeway you need in order for yourself to move forward sometimes, because don't be so hard on yourself. Like you can be the most limiting thing in your success if you let that happen. And I've been so guilty of that, and like I haven't even tapped what I think is my ultimate potential because I've limited myself. And I've always been, out there really mission driven and supporting companies and supporting, doing my job. And I've always been a good soldier per se. And now I'm really focused on like I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do something on my own, not on my own, but with the right people. And we're going to do some fun things, and we're going to hopefully make money that allows us to do more good things for our communities. But, we're going to do some things where it's like, I'm going to put all of myself into it and trust myself to once.
Do you, and the money will follow.
100%.
My expression, which I live by, is do you, be dope. Yep. And what that means is, do you, and whatever your 100% is, stay true to it, and the money will follow.
100%. And I think that's where, I think social media is a great tool, and if it's used the right way, then great. But I think a lot of people like make sure you're looking at social media for what it is, and understand who you're following, why you're following them. Do you really believe in the message that they're delivering to you, or are you getting informed or getting something out of it?
The nail on the head right there.
And I think there's a lot out there, right? And I think in the physical fitness world, it's kind of funny. Like every exercise that's been demonstrated has been done by somebody else. Like it's not rocket science. It's science, but it's not rocket science.
I'm like doing an Arnold press at the gym the other day, and some guy's like, no, you're not supposed to do it like that. That was like back in the day, and like Arnold did it. So I'm like, pretty sure it's a good workout, and if you want to do a shoulder press another way, but I appreciate your advice.
Everything can be transformative in some ways, and I think that's where, that things come and go. But I think who you are can be something that stays forever if you live a life really, driven by moving with purpose, which is really kind of how I've focused on every aspect of my life. Whether it's, at work, it's pretty straightforward, move with purpose, like actually accomplish things, great. At the gym, it's like, what am I doing today that's going to move me forward? In life, though, it's like, what's driving your purpose? You wake up and like, what's the first thing you think about? And are you going to execute on it, or is it something that is going to deter you from your long-term goals? And like, that's your first, the first question you got to answer when you wake up. It's like, how am I going to attack this day? And it's why I work out in the morning too, because the only thing I can control is how I start.
Yep. Whenever I'm finished and it's already pre 8 a.m. and I'm done, it's like, fuck, I already won today. I already got like a dope workout in, and it's 8 a.m.
Yeah, people will see sometimes like my posts at like 5:30, 6:37, and I've already like taken. If I have friends on the West Coast, I've had a bunch of calls this week on the West Coast people, and they're like, "So how's your day?" I'm like, "Well, I've been up since 5."
Yeah.
So I've had 8 hours of work, or like I'm already 8 hours into my day, and it's like noontime for them.
It also like fuels the rest of your day, because it's just like you just want to like talk to more people. You want to like spread that energy.
And that's the most important thing is like, and like I always do this sometimes, and like you probably see me do this. I do like a challenge all the time of like walk down the street, and just say hello to somebody, say good morning, and like it's funny because like you'll probably say 100 good mornings, and honestly you'll probably get 5 to 10 back. I think you just did something similar, but I'll do that. And like my last speech and my last Savour the Moment event, I was focused on the 5 senses, It's like we're missing out so much because people have their headphones in, so you're not hearing the noises around you, whether it's nature, whatever it is. You're not hearing somebody say good morning, which could change your day. You're hearing whatever you're hearing, which is fine.
Yep.
But you're also focused on straight ahead. Like you're not looking around because people don't want to make eye contact because that's scary.
And also the eye contact, usually their headphones in and down at the phone. Even
100%.
though they're walking, they're down at the phone.
Right. So I think that's where it's like, you know, like my doormen are the funniest people, like, or my concierge. Like I walk down, if they don't, they'll say good morning, and like immediately I'm like, my bad, like, good morning. But that's accountability too, and you need like those little subtle things. Like I'll walk by my cart guy right outside, and if I don't order from him every day, but he'll still say good morning, and I'll make sure I say it when he's sitting there cooking, and like, I'll surprise him, like, hey, good morning.
Yeah,
Like
and
5:30,
seeing you
like,
also makes them smile.
and like we do a similar, like I use the $2 bills, like I tip like my garage guys every morning. And I do take my car to the gym, which is like 10 blocks down the road. It's easier.
Yeah.
But I sit there and I tip too, so they don't forget you. You know, and it's like one of those things, they remember the little things, and I think little things make big differences.
Little things make big differences. And
Yeah.
always smile.
Try to.
Jon MacIntyre, give me one word of advice on how to make it in New York.
Ask for help. And I think you can be the hardest worker in the room, but at the end of the day, like there's somebody who has done it before you. There's somebody who might have done it better. There's someone you're going to need in order for you to do or reach your best or highest capabilities. You might be able to be you might be the best performer ever, but if there's somebody who can help you in some sort of way, like Tiger Woods has a swing coach. Craziest, funniest comment in the world, right? Tiger Woods has a swing coach. Somebody's telling him how to swing. Crazy.
I've used that exact example when talking about exactly what you just said about, because anybody who I'm coaching or training, I always say, if you don't know the answer to something, ask me.
Yep.
Ask for help. And I always say, Tiger Woods has a swing coach.
That's fine. This wasn't planned. Like it's the funniest thing. It's like it's so true. Like the greatest people out there haven't done it.
That's
whether
actually pretty crazy.
Whether it was their
I've
parents
used
or
that.
like somebody's going to need to help you at some point in your life. Don't shy away from asking for it, but at the same time pay it forward. Help other people. And you'll be so rewarded by that, the energy you get from helping other people. You know, I think that's where like somebody helped me. So I'm very conscious of speaking at schools and being like, don't make dumb mistakes. And they're like, who are you to tell me? I'm like, well, let me tell you my story. And it's like, then you become relatable. So like go back and like make a difference in somebody's life, the way somebody's impacted you, whether it's your family, whether it's friends, whether it's mentors, whether it's experience, like, you know, ask for help and be of help.
Jon MacIntyre, thank you for coming.
No, I appreciate you having me.
And on the theme of asking for help, I actually had asked Jon for help on where do I find the best button downs, because I started lifting a little heavier in the gym, and my button downs they were kind of like they were pulling, and Jon suggested
Good old Roan.
Roan, and I walked in here today on set, and
We're wearing the same shirt.
we are wearing the same Roan shirt.
Yeah. And it's like it's one of those. It's a brand that I'm very much connected with, and similarly, like I believe in what they're doing. I wear their clothes, so I'm happy to support what they're doing. So.
And I went and tried it on, and I was happy with the fit. And then I had to get the double thumbs up from my wife, and she was like, I like it. It's similar to, it's like, and I was telling Jon, it's like an Italian cotton mixed with kind of like that Lulu vibe, but better.
There you go.
Jon,
Appreciate you, man.
thanks for coming.
Thank you.
We out.